Hello, I'm Oliver Gerrish. I'm an architectural historian and I'm very interested in the English country house, particularly at this time during a period where we have not been able to visit places in the flesh. And I'm very interested in the role that film and media can play in bringing us back into these houses. So I've teamed up with filmmaker Freddie Fitzherbert to bring to you a small selection of country houses for you to look at and learn about and be welcomed into from your computer screens or from the television. We hope that these houses will contrast well and be an entertaining, interesting and a beguiling look at these great treasure houses which we take sometimes for granted here in England, and I know that they are the envy of the world. So I hope you enjoy this short selection and we look forward to showing them to you. Back in this extraordinary room, the Marble Saloon, 1730s by Henry Flitcroft, and surely one of the largest rooms in any English country house, and it's extraordinary, isn't it? It's
beautiful, isn't it? It's really got that wow factor, hasn't it? People walking here for the first time, it's just breathtaking, really.
Is it a very useful room still?
It's a room everybody wants to use.
Yes.
You know, if people want to get married here, or if there's film companies using the site, they always want to use this room. It's in a pretty poor state, unfortunately, so there's a lot of work we need to do, particularly to the floor, and we've got some quite severe dry rot that we're trying to deal with over in this corner here. But there's just a lovely atmosphere in here, isn't it? It's really calm.
It is.
You know?
I just read about it, saw pictures of it as a kid, you know, looking at all these old house books, and I thought my first reaction when I was reading about Wentworth Woodhouse was it would be this rather forbidding, formal, not very welcoming place. And perhaps it's not just the architecture, I think probably it's the welcome here, the trust that it gives, but also I think the building itself is so much more friendly and lovable, despite its huge scale.
I think when I came, it's very, how can I describe it? There's something very northern about this house. It really oozes Yorkshire and northernness somehow. I don't know why, but it's got a lovely feel to it. I spend a lot of time here on my own, and it never feels anything other than
never feels too big. And so here you've got this wonderful example of the enfilade, these rooms that lead through to each other, and it's the French idea of these sets of apartments. And here you've got a wonderful example right down there, right down there. So which way should we go?
Let's start this way, and then we can go back to the other way.
The last one, but
come on in anyway.
I don't think you can count that far.
That's right. Anyway, and as you come in, you put your sword on the sword rack.
Or your stick. Yeah.
Or your stick at the moment.
And we're walking into a house that was built here in 1609, because the original house was over there in the field. And it's quite a special case here, in many ways, but a special case because this is a good example of an axial hall which runs straight through the house rather than going off to one side, which was typical prior to this time. And you need to go to places like Hardwick Hall and you'll see a really grand example of this. But this was really showing that Tissington was very up to date and trying to be part of this whole set of Midland tower houses of the type of Robert Smithson.
Anyway, it's a wonderful room, we still live in it. Obviously we use it every day, but we entertain in it. So in the old days, the family would have entertained it, they'd have house parties, they'd have the Gerrishes from down the way, they'd have, the Windsors possibly, or the Oakovers from around the corner, and then they'd have big house parties. Now we use our home very much as a party house, as a function house. So we host weddings, dinners, when it's not COVID, of course,
yes.
Weddings, dinners, lunches, etc. throughout the year.
And you do it in a marvellous way. I've been to a number of things here, whether it's for local WI or for the county club or for academics coming to study chimneys, or whether it's for extremely smart Americans having a banquet next door. I mean, you're ready for it all, which I think...
We're well prepared to do anything. I mean, this week we had a bit of TV with a local weatherman doing national weather from the gardens, mainly in the dark. It was a breakfast show, but we could have an antique show, anything like that. But
and has it been quite special having the house much more to yourselves during this time?
You've learned more about the house, certainly during COVID, and I've certainly found things that I didn't know I had.
Yes.
And I'll show some of those to you in the next few minutes.
Well, here we are in the hall anyway, which is the largest room in the house, isn't it, Richard?
It is the largest room, so we can get lots of people in here. And usually, this weekends anyway, this room is buzzing with weddings and wedding guests and things like that. Sadly, of course, that's had to stop this year. But the most striking feature in this room is, in fact, the fireplace here. And we've even got the original receipt to it, and it dates back to 1757, and it's a chimney piece in the hall at Tissington, measured and valued by Daniel Hopton and Henry Watson. And the total bill for it is £54, 2 shillings, 5 halfpenny.
Which is a huge amount.
Huge amount of money. And if you look at the artistry and the work in it, it's just fantastic. And in today's money, that's £150,000 sterling.
And it really is a spectacular thing, this, because you don't really see that many Gothic chimney pieces, certainly, and overmantels from that time in Georgian England. And what's so lovely about it is you also see it being continued in the corners in the frieze, which is the top of the wall where it joins the ceiling, all the way around the room. And again, you can see these little OG Gothic arches here above the earlier Jacobean paneling. It's really fantastic. But it really shows very well how the English country house evolves. And your family decided not to get rid of the paneling from the 17th century. They decided just to modify it with the Georgian frieze above.
Yes, it's a lot of mixture of different generations and different architectural styles. But if we come over here and we look at the little model of the house that I was kindly given by Freddie and Francesca for my birthday, you can see that originally there were two sections to the house. There was on the right-hand side where all the staff lived, over on the right-hand side, and the main house, which was where the family lived. And so you can see the 48 chimneys, you can see a bird's eye view of the house, and it explains how the house evolved over the years, and how in 1902 they joined the house together, and I joke it was because they didn't want the staff to get wet when they came over to make breakfast for the people in the big house, you see.
And now, ironically, of course, the people in the big house live in the staff wing.
Correct, it's the other way around. We live behind the green baize door rather than in front of it. But to be fair to our family, now we're all over the place now. But yes, we do live in the more in the warmer part, shall we say?
Smaller rooms,
yeah. Easier to heat.
Absolutely. And unlike this huge room, and of course in the past, the Great Hall was in the medieval times where the entire household would gather for meals. Some of them would even sleep here. And the hall in the English country house has always remained this slightly peculiar sort of public space, slightly outdoorsy, indoorsy. It's never been a place which you really just sit in. That's right.
It's used for big events. It's used for big events and for moving through.
Yes,
and that's what we're going to do now. We're going to move through. What a thing! Super. Move through up the main.
Outside here, we're now in the park. This is the avenue which goes all the way down to a cross at the end of it, which is in memory of a rather special event which happened in 1513, because one of your family kept a dangerous animal, Charlie.
We had a menagerie of animals around the back. And when I say around the back, I mean around the back of the house and right up towards the stables. And that's where it was.
Exotic animals.
Exotic only. And the panther escaped. And Sir John, who was out hunting at the time, heard of the panther's escape and came back and tracked the panther from the back of the house the whole way down. And right up down to the very end, where...
Do you think he ran after it? He must be quite fit.
Well, I think he's on horseback.
Oh, he's on a horse, oh good, yeah.
I'd hope. Otherwise, yeah, he's very fit.
It's a mile long.
And he tracked it there the whole way with his son and found the panther about to pounce on mother and child. The son said, "Prenez tire fort," in French, which means take breath and pull strong, pull hard. And shot the panther dead. King heard of the deed, granted the crest of a panther for the family, and the words of the son for the motto of the family too.
Well, what I love that in the way that nowadays, if you'd if one of your animals had escaped and nearly killed someone and their child, you might not have been awarded a special
health
coat
and safety
of
would be a real issue. And yes, it would have been handed down the wrong way. I think it would have been punishment rather than reward.
I think perhaps. But it's rather amazing that this ancient family motto and crest of the panther still survives this day. And actually, if we go to the front of the house now, which is up here, we've got in the centre of the house a great portico, which is of the Ionic order, so it's got those twisty things at the top, almost like ram's horns twisted round. But in the centre of it, you've got the coat of arms. And on the shield, what's on the shield, Charlie?
3 stirrups.
3 stirrups.
So, 3 stirrups. You've got there are 2 analogies towards it. One, in that we were very closely related to William the Conqueror.
Right. Useful thing to be at the time,
I suppose. We were his first cousins, so if you look on the side, so you've got 3 stirrups, 2 on the top and 1 in the middle. And the third is supposed to be the king's standard, because he asked us to be the standard bearer at the Battle of Hastings.
Yeah.
But he was too old to be the bearer, so he passed on to his son.
Yeah.
And then there were 3 brothers that came across in 1066 for the battle. 1 went back, 2 Gifford stayed, and so there you have your 2 analogies towards it.
How extraordinary. And on the left of the house, the wing you see on the left there, it's been very cleverly disguised by Sir John Soane in the 1780s to make it look like it's a new build. But on the left is an earlier wing of 1724, which was, I think, put up at the time of the marriage, was it Peter Gifford to Barbara Throgmorton?
Correct, yeah.
And,
so
and the rainwater pipes have actually got their sort of their initials on it, I believe.
They still have P, B,
T and PG. You can tell how educated we are, can't you? Yeah.
But
a dyslexic nightmare.
All across that, and so it's obviously a Smith of Warwick wing.
And Smith of Warwick, yes, built this wing, and it's Francis Smith of Warwick, one of the great Midland architects, but very much a provincial architect. And then you suddenly have Sir John Soane, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the brickwork was all going to be rendered at one point. It was going to be, it probably would, Soane had aimed, in the drawings it looks like it was stuccoed or rendered.
I think that was probably the plan. I think the great cost of this house being built in the first place, I think he was down to his 4th wife to finish it off.
4th wife, goodness, yeah.
And unfortunately, I think he probably ran out of money to actually finish the rendering and complete the house. So hence you got the house you have today, which is what it is. And
I always think actually it's interesting that for the de Gifford family is a very interesting case in point of what sometimes the Americans find hard to understand about the British, and particularly the idea of the British aristocracy. In England, you don't necessarily have to have a title to be part of the aristocracy, and the Gifford family were quite clever. They married a lot of very grand people throughout the years and came over a very, very long time ago, but they kept their head generally quite below the parapet nationally, didn't they? Until, apart from when you got in trouble over Elizabeth I.
Yeah, we've always been staunch royalists, so I don't think there's any denying of that. I suppose the closest we've come to losing the lot would be when this was a royal garrison and the outer courtyard being bombed, and we lost the lot and we were under house arrest in another house close by. But when King Charles II, when we helped him escape from after the Battle of Worcester, he came to Boscobel House and the Oak Tree, which was on Gifford lands. And once he escaped to France and then came back after the Restoration, then certainly that helped us gain everything back. And put us back to where we were. So we were very lucky, I think, as well. But since then, I suppose religions have not changed, but favouring a religion has probably changed.
Yes.
Whilst we were Catholics, we're now
Anglican,
and always have been for the last 200 odd years. So that hasn't really changed.
Because I think Queen Elizabeth I came to stay here, didn't she? And
she did.
And didn't your ancestor? He didn't turn up to church or something like that.
He didn't turn up to her church.
Yes,
that's the difference. And that and her church was Anglican. We were Roman Catholic, and we were fined £1,000 a day for 3 days for not attending her church while she was here.
And it was but then she had such a nice time here that she slightly forgave Gifford.
I think it was more. I think it was forgiving on one side, but also the fact that we entertained her entire court, where she literally ate us out and drank us out of house and home. Kind of takes probably maybe she felt a bit of pity on us that maybe we were allowed to rebuild afterwards, because it would have taken some time to accumulate cattle after that.
Goodness me. Well, I think from the house to the park, and should we go and, Charlie, we're going to explore some of that, a little bit of it, and see.
Let's keep on going.
Yeah, perfect. This way?
This way.
Follow on. We need a horse.